One of the most entertaining things I've seen is, Todd, you telling the story of your former partner saying that y'all had a relationship. And that you said, bring him over here and have him address this in front of my wife.
That's right.
What was this like for you, Julie, to hear that kind of accusation against your husband?
You know, I know my husband, and I truly do. And listen, and I'm not this woman that walks around thinking, oh my gosh, that could never happen to me. And I'm not talking about man, woman. I'm talking about an affair,
betrayal.
period. Betrayal, period. Because the moment you think it can't happen to you is when it does. But I know my husband, there was never a question in my mind. Never a question. And, you know, and I think that's why it honestly didn't bother me. Now, if it had been a beautiful 35-year-old blonde, 5'9", I'd have been like, oh, well, mate, you know, who knows? But that, no, I never even gave it a second thought. It bothered Todd way more than it did me because
The betrayal. Because that was a commitment that Julie and I made when we first was dating and got engaged was, you know, what are your deal breakers? And, you know, both of our deal breakers was infidelity. And Mark knew what my marriage meant to me. He knew what my children meant to me. This is someone who literally was in our will. If something happened to me and Julie in a car accident or a plane or whatever, he would have been over our children. And that's the kind of level of trust that we had for this man. And he was stealing from us the entire time. And so when we found that out, and what the world doesn't know is that I slapped the shit out of him right there in the office in front of my attorneys when all this stuff was brought out that he had done.
So you just reared back and smoked him.
I'm from South Carolina. You need not forget that. So I have fought my way to get where I am. And so when you come at me with some sideways bull, I will meet you there. So I remember my attorneys, literally one of them pulling me from under my arms and throwing me in the conference room and said, no, that's what he wants. He wants to sue you. So it wasn't, what was it, weeks after that he comes up with it because we were getting ready to file this federal RICO suit against him, which was, I think, 5,000 pages is what we've now been told, of all the things he had done. And then he comes up with this story. Well, if you file this, I'm going to tell about me and Todd having this relationship or whatever. I said, what? Well, I was in shock over it. Because now listen, I've been in my days. So you can't come at me with that. I know what I've done. I know who I've laid down with. And it would have never been nobody like him. So, you know, when he said that, I said, bring Julie in here. We're not doing this in private. I said it to my attorney, Bob Barr. And he said, are you sure? And I said, we don't have secrets. That's why we've lasted this long. She came in and Julie said, well, I'll tell you what, because Julie was the largest shareholder in the company. She said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. She said, you bring him here with proof. And if he's got it, I won't file this lawsuit. And she gave him 24 hours. That never happened. You can't come with proof when it didn't happen. So the irony of it is that he's told his wife that he told this at the direction of the prosecutors because they wanted that gotcha moment. They wanted this in the press. Because remember well, you don't know this, but they had decided that Mark Braddock could not be trusted, the prosecutors had.
Right.
So they said, we're not going to bring that allegation out because there's no proof of it, there's no substantiation of it. It wasn't until our attorneys brought out in court about Mark Braddock impersonating me and stalking me that the prosecutors then said, well, we have to answer this now, so we want to bring this out. So that's why it came out. But I don't care. Go tell that. I'm glad that people think that I can get laid on both sides of the track. I'm good with that.
I want people to know the truth, what actually went down with my family.
There's a score to be settled. My dad is not one to play with.
I have nothing to hide.
We can tell this story today, and then we can be done with this part of our life.
I'm looking at this as me exposing the truth.
You said in the trailer, and you've said it throughout, I watched the first episode, that you will be vindicated after this series. How will that happen?
Well, you know, I think that vindication matters to me. on how I feel. I don't really care how you feel or how the rest of the world perceives something. I know my truth. I think that you will have more information after this series ends, that you will be able to form your own opinion. You will have a website where that directs you for you to look at every document that you did not get to see. Because we all know that the press is lazy. The press wants that clip. They want the work done for them. They're not willing to do a deep dive and find out what the real facts are. So I think that you're going to get a lot of that in this show.
Read a lot of comments after you sat down and did an interview where you you laid out a lot of the information about what went wrong. And people said, he has receipts, he has the names, he has all the information. Okay. Maybe Todd is telling the truth. But what do you say to those people who say, well, that was a lot of money. $30 million is a lot of money.
But it was never $30 million. You know, it was never $30 million. That's what the press wanted to run with. You know, the indictment was $36 million, but you need to understand how they come to this number. That is every loan for real estate development that was done under my former CEO. It was not that there was $36 million lost. Look at the trial. Look at how many bankers came in there. They didn't. These bankers did not say that they had these losses. You had 2 bankers that came in there. One of them said that because of everything that I did, his bank suffered less than had I not stepped in. So, you know, but that doesn't sell the story. The goal was to tear down the Chrisleys, and the press helped to try to accomplish that. That didn't happen because you were fighting against God when you were coming against us. Because I'm one of his anointed children, so you couldn't get close to me.